How can having this sense of control be so elusive? Somewhere along the way in this career in medicine and in the role as a mom, autonomy slips or it's seemingly taken away. And that matters quite a lot. It feels disheartening to not control what matters most. This can lead to chronic stress and the massive fallout from how stress hurts the mind and body. But there is hope. A loss of control over some areas of life does not mean the ability, confidence, and drive is lost. There is still a fire in you that wants to be set free. You can take a step back into the ring and take back agency. When you have it, it is gloriously rewarding. This episode will discuss 2 common thieves of control. Find the full transcript and more resources for physician moms at inspiredmommds.com/34. You're listening to Inspired Mom MDs with host Cindy Van Prague, helping physician moms take back control and prioritize what matters most so they thrive in private practice and at home. Hi there, and thank you for joining me today. Slowly losing control over important matters at work and home leads to feelings of helplessness or hopelessness. The solution is to understand the psychology and even some neuroscience behind these conditions. Today, I will help shine light on how the brain gets stuck in a swirl of lost agency. Once you understand it, you can diagnose it and then tackle it. Recall that agency means you can produce desired results by your own actions. Good outcomes are more likely, and bad outcomes less so because of this control over what you do. It gives you power to change what can be changed. But sometimes it doesn't feel that way, that it's not very clear that change is even possible. Loss of control can be fueled by several things, but I want to discuss just 2 today. They're common, and that you can reverse: learned helplessness and defensive pessimism. Keep listening, I have a couple stories. My first story is for learned helplessness, and many may relate to this one. I used a fictitious character so that I could compile true events from multiple doctors. Here we go. Dr. Jones had just spent a significant amount of time with a young patient diagnosing a complex medical condition. She'd carefully explained the treatment plan to the parents and answered their questions patiently. She was confident that she had provided the best possible care. However, when she turned her attention to the insurance paperwork, she hit a roadblock. The insurance company had denied coverage for a crucial medication. They cited a technicality in the patient's policy. Frustrated, the doctor spent hours on the phone with the insurance company, only to be met with an automated system or unhelpful representatives. Each failed attempt to resolve the issue only deepened her sense of frustration. She felt like she was fighting a losing battle, a teeny individual against this giant impersonal corporation. And for some, this story can lead to learned helplessness, where they give in and let the insurance companies win. But not for Dr. Jones. In that moment of despair, a spark ignited within her. She realized that she couldn't let the system dictate her ability to provide quality care, and she resolved to challenge the bureaucracy. She took back control with action. She began to explore her options. She researched patient advocacy organizations. She sought advice from colleagues. She learned about the importance of clear and concise documentation, and she meticulously documented from then on every interaction with the insurance company. With renewed vigor, she crafted a detailed appeal letter. Then she followed up with phone calls and emails and even a visit to the local office. It was a lot of work, but through her persistence and advocacy, Dr. Jones was finally able to secure the necessary approval for the medication. The victory, of course, not only helped her patient, but also empowered Dr. Jones to take control of her own career and fight for what she believed in. She realized that strengthening her internal sense of control could win over the external control of the insurance company. I know that story sounds like she did a lot, but again, that was a fictitious character. And those are the hoops the doctors jump through. So I just kept throwing them in because there were so many. Not that one person would do all of those. So Martin Seligman, he's a renowned psychologist you may know, is credited with pioneering the concept of learned helplessness. In 1967, his experiments on dogs demonstrated this phenomenon. The dogs were placed in harnesses and they were subjected to electric shocks. Initially, they tried to escape, but when they realized their efforts were futile, they eventually stopped trying, even when given the opportunity to escape. Now, humans can also come to believe that they are helpless to change their situation. And strikingly, even when opportunities to escape arise, a human may also choose to stay. Wow. It's like saying, here's an open door to escape this cruddy situation, but you're too tired and defeated and worn out and to just even stand up and walk out the door. Seligman's research highlights the importance of perceived control and the negative impact of these repeated failures or setbacks. Now, fast forward to 2013, when the same renowned psychologist and his colleague, Stephen Meyer, published a manuscript about the neuroscience of learned helplessness. And guess what they found? Learned helplessness isn't in fact learned. It's not. They showed that passivity in response to shock is not learned. It is the default, unlearned response to prolonged aversive events, and that this default system is mediated by serotonin in a very specific part of the brain, the dorsal-raphe nucleus, which in turn will inhibit escape. That's fascinating. And the good news is that one can overcome this default setting of passivity by learning and strengthening personal control. And like in the story, that control needs to be internal or come from within, like your fire or your spark. So understanding that control starts with you, not waiting for someone else to influence the situation. I'll go through some ways to regain that internal control in a couple minutes. I have to tell you my next story about defensive pessimism. Defensive pessimism can feel like self-sabotage when one loses control over a situation. Here's what happens. It involves setting low expectations and thinking out the worst-case scenarios of an important task or situation. This happens even though the evidence shows success in the past. I sometimes still feel overwhelmed by my own demanding schedule, even after recent years of making it much more sane. Despite the fact that I do actually get everything done on time, I will anticipate far less. I'll jump to a worst-case outcome like getting behind on podcasting or other, serious time-bound business projects. And to get behind means failure. On those crazy weeks in my head, I never have enough time to complete all my tasks. But the evidence is that I routinely do get everything done. So is this anxiety-driven productivity? The answer is yes. Anxiety about potential failure fuels efforts to do well. The anxiety manifests as thought loops, at least for me, listing everything that needs to get done and then finding enough hours in my week to assign to them and do them. And you know what? That takes time. Paradoxically, I end up wasting time with the stress over the deadlines and doing things just right than just doing the work. And as you may guess, the end result is less productivity. While defensive pessimism can sometimes be a protective strategy, like driving me to succeed, it can also hinder performance and lead to unnecessary stress. Thankfully, I've been gaining experience in how to successfully handle my defensive pessimism. Imagine if I let this go week after week. It could lead to fatigue, the drop in performance, and decreased satisfaction with my career. The biggest win for me to combat this thought cycle is a reality check. I first question the validity of my negative thoughts. Are they actually based in facts? Am I just being fearful of failure? How have I succeeded or failed in the past? This reality check takes me out of that first person experience into a third person friend. That friend is much more objective in weighing all the facts and emotions, and she comes up with the logical answers. Research shows that defensive pessimism is positively predicted by uncertain personal control over an outcome. It is therefore negatively predicted by a task focused goal or orientation. So, a sense of less control means more pessimism, and more control is correlated with less pessimism. The reality check and third person review is my way of regaining control and thereby decreasing defensive pessimism. Other ways may include setting realistic goals or breaking big jobs down into bite sized yet effective parts. The practice of mindfulness is incredibly effective in grounding yourself and decreasing anxiety organically. And I didn't mention this, but I will also add in very short meditation breaks during high peaks of stress. One of these is only 2 minutes long, and I found it on my meditation app called Insight Timer. So it's so easy to incorporate. I also didn't mention that I absolutely celebrate my small wins. Celebrating small wins and achieving these goals is an empowering practice that not only reinforces the control you do have, but spurs confidence to keep going. I want to quickly bring up self-handicapping. It's another term. It's a close cousin of defensive pessimism, not to be confused with each other. Self-handicapping is the process of constructing obstacles to success so that if failure occurs, it wasn't the person's fault. So I just pointed this out to my kid the other day. He was dreading a calculus quiz because the content was really tough that week. And his solution was not to prepare and just study in the morning classes before his calculus class. I told him, you know what you're doing, right? You're self-handicapping. If you fail, it's not your fault because you didn't study. But if you do really well, then you look like a rock star. And he answered, I know, Mom. I took psychology last year. And he smirked back at me. Anyway, you do have the courage to retake control. Recognizing how the brain sometimes lets you sink into learned helplessness or defensive pessimism brings awareness to the psychology and some physiology of what's going on here. Awareness and recognition are a starting point for taking back control, like a little piece of flint. And flint can be used to reignite your fire. Regain agency by working on that internal control, like reality checks, mindfulness, breaking down large goals into smaller, effective goals. There's so many options. It depends on your unique circumstance, right? That's where working with a colleague or friend or even a coach can help to clarify changes that are within your reach. I would like to end today with Reinhold Niebuhr's 1930s version of the Serenity Prayer, the original. It says, give us courage to change what must be changed, serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know the one from the other. Don't forget to join me next week for another dose of support and inspiration. And until then, take care of yourselves and take care of those who matter most. It's time to take control and thrive. Thank you for tuning in to Inspired Mom MDs. Please share with other physician moms and leave a review if you found value from this podcast.